what I heard in that is the desire to have some more of that intimacy and closeness and that love and that nurturing from a man is particularly healing for you. But that at some point it has an expiration date where you're looking for a man who's to still be that container when you need that.
So when I see a man who wants to nurture me, wants closeness with me, I'm so drawn in because I want to feel mother. And something about that is also father, but it's also a lot of mother because I'm getting nurtured. And then I start to be repulsed by it eventually. Right. Yeah. And I start to punish him. And I get angry at him. And I want to push his buttons. And I want to see, will he put a boundary up? Will he have some structure? Or will he finally want alone time? And it will come out, like this happened in one of my more recent relationships where I was getting very nitpicky and insensitive to the way that I phrased him never wanting alone time. Like, just go have alone time. Want to be alone, you know? So this is just, okay, wait, before I go to the next thing, what I love so much about me being balanced and him being balanced and both of us having harmony between our structure and our flow, our intimacy and closeness and our separateness, is that when he is not letting his desire for me, his yearning for intimacy with me take control, he actually gives me enough space to feel my own longing. If he's already jumping on me or sacredly, what did we say earlier?
You don't got to clean it up. Jumping on me paints a perfect picture.
It was so good. Oh, sacredly suffocating me. If he's sacredly suffocating me with his love, he just wants to love, and it's so much mother energy. I can't touch the part of me that actually wants him. To be like blunt, if he's grabbing my hand and putting it on his body wherever he wants it, I don't get to decide where do I want to put my hand now. Right. We women want to touch our own desire. We're so used to being the desired, the pursued, and that's the way our culture is. So there's also something very masculine in that. I'm not saying it's all feminine. Like if you're bringing her roses and you're courting her, that's masculine. But there's an energy to it that can be very feminine, where it's like, I long for you, come closer, love, 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 love.
Right. Well, let's bookmark that for a second, because I definitely want to talk more about what women actually are looking for from men. Because as I told you before we got on here, that's something that I think confuses all guys, including me. But I don't want to skip past some things that you were sharing there. So what I heard in that is the desire to have some more of that intimacy and closeness and that love and that nurturing from a man is particularly healing for you. But that at some point it has an expiration date where you're looking for a man who's to still be that container when you need that, to be that container for the chaos, the emotion to pour out. And I think that what I observe is that women who are dialed up in their masculine for whatever reasons, whether it goes back to the way they were raised, traumas, etc., that tend to attract men who are more open and free and lovey and doting on them. It has something to do with the way that they needed to survive and get by, and that there's a part of them that wants to release that masculine, maybe not completely, because I think that we both need to possess both of these energies at all times in our lives, but to be able to hand some of it over, to be taken care of in that way, to say, hey, it's okay, go ahead, go wherever you need to go. And really, I can just, yes, really, like I got you, you can go there. And if a man isn't able to produce that because he either doesn't have that or he's not comfortable in his masculine, that eventually that's going to be something that a woman is looking for. Maybe, and I don't want to generalize, but that's something that I've observed. Is that something you see too, especially working with a lot of women? Definitely.
Yeah, I say that if you can't, this is on the same thread, a little bit different, but if you can't stand up to her, you can't stand up for her. So a lot of women really want that. We want to feel your heart, and that's the feminine thing that we want to feel, but we also want to know that you have a good pulse on boundaries, not to block us out, but to contain. And like, something's very, like that's what polarity is. It's distance to travel. literally. So if you're already in the longing and in the feels and in the coming in closer and in the mother energy, and that's naturally her state, someone's going to move out of it to create polarity. It's just nature. And if the man is really in that, it's probably going to be her, because she's already learned how to create masculine structure in her life. Right. Women have a very strong masculine from the ways that we've had to protect ourselves over the last tens of thousands of years.
Right.
And so, yeah, I find that dynamic to be really fascinating.
Yeah. Would you say that boundaries and creating boundaries is more of a masculine quality, or is that something that masculine and feminine both share?
I think that's masculine. That is the pure masculine, not men. That's the pure masculine energy is a boundary. It's the riverbed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not, I don't even like the word boundaries. It's so used today of just boundary this, boundary that. And I have friends who are just constantly putting up boundaries left and right. And I really think you cannot be penetrated by life when you're constantly putting up boundaries. So I think there's a different word for it. It's like a sacred sandbox. You know, you're still playing inside of it and you can step out of it. It's flexible. You're not locked in like a cage, and there's still a breeze coming over the sandbox. So you're still feeling the energy of life. But you've got your square that you're inside of, and you can see clearly. We're not trying to create separation and walls between partners, I don't think. Like the more boundary-less we are, the more we forget ourselves. So there's something beautiful about that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I totally agree with you, because I think we're a society of extremes where when you say boundary, in people's minds, that's steel reinforced fortress, moat, drawbridge. Nobody's getting in or out of this place, right? And that's an extreme. And when I think of boundary, I think of like Mr. Miyagi from Karate Kid comes into my head, right? It's like the unshakable version of ourselves that knows who we are. I know who I am. I know what I'm willing to compromise on, and I know what I won't. And I'm available for anything that is outside of my territory. There's some places where you're allowed to come in on my terms and be in this place on my terms. And everything outside of that space is open and free, and I'll show up and be available for whatever that needs to be. And that's the orientation that's helped me the most, because I've also been in those extremes myself, where I didn't know how to, I came from being in relationships where I was more of the nice guy. I want to make you happy, so I'm going to bend over backwards to do whatever it takes. And if you're not happy, I can't handle that. I can't be good unless you're good. That the root of codependency. So part of my strengthening of myself, being able to be in a relationship with my wife, is that I had to learn what was mine, what was I willing to defend and stand up to, but not in a way that completely closed me off from her. And it's a tricky balance. It's definitely an art. It's like a martial art of learning how to do that dance all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And something that's helped me a lot is this fact that love cannot be lost. Sometimes we put up boundaries out of fear. I know that one of my big issues in relationship is that I get cold. I can be cold, especially when I'm with a feminine man. Right? It's really bad then. Actually, I'm almost rarely cold with a man who is, just like I don't even know how to describe it, because, I'm 29. And I'm on dating apps. So I still meet a lot of guys who are not even spiritual. They don't use this verbiage. They have no idea what feminine and masculine means. Let's just call them dudes. They're just dudes. And I don't get cold with dudes, because there's something about them that's so murky and mysterious, and they make me a little more timid. For whatever reason, my powerful, strong goddess doesn't come up as much with dudes than they do with men who are doing their work. Maybe it's a permission field. Men who are really in their work. Something about being in their presence really engages my work, and I can come in with more boundary and more love and more consciousness and femininity. And then those are the realms where I can sometimes get a little cold, because I'm more afraid in those realms. I'm more afraid whenever their love could be lost, or I get really resentful when I'm with a feminine man who's outpouring his heart and I'm facing maybe a part of myself that I don't even welcome in. I'm not welcoming in as much as I think I am.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me, because just in the same way that when people are going out and dating, like traditional, what we think of as dating, you bring the highlight reel version of yourself. Right? The highlight reel version of yourself is a small quadrant on that spectrum of highs and lows, the full polarity of your being. So what I hear in what you're saying is that when you feel safer and like there's more capacity to hold what's outside of that small highlight reel of yourself, then that individual is going to get to experience it. Well,
let me ask you a question. Why is it that, because I feel very, very feminine with the dudes, because they're so oblivious. It's something about it just engages more of my like lighthearted, silly, young, youthful femininity. And I love that flavor. And I'm curious why she comes out more with the dudes and not so much with the conscious older men doing their work.
Well, are you familiar with Alison Armstrong's work at all?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So what she would consider the male archetypes of, page, knight, prince. When you say dude, I think knight. And I think that the knight harbors so much of that natural masculine sense of adventure, possibility, nothing to lose. Almost like there's like nothing to lose, that I just imagine would bring out more of that feminine, kind of like, ooh, what is this kind of experience? Do you think that has something to do with it?
That sounds very on point. Yeah, because there is something so confident that makes me like, I feel my maybe my longing a little more, because there's so much distance, with the king. He's not afraid to say, I want you. The distance between me and him is a little shorter. Like I can get him a little bit more easily if I wanted to. And if he wanted me, like we could go off and make that relationship happen. Whereas with a knight, it's like he's still discovering what he is pursuing in his life, and I want to be a part of it. Like, and so it engages that part of me that's feminine, flirty, fun, and endlessly curious about this human, because he's curious about who he is, and so it makes me curious. So that's great. Thank you.
Well, and the reason that I think women don't, like yourself, don't pursue nights very far is because that road of adventure, it's like having a really fun night out, right? You're like, oh my God, this is the best night of my life. And you wake up the next day and you're like, oh, you're still on party, adventure, not commitment road. So it expires very quickly.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's the trade-off. And I think that, speaking to the men who have gone through, because we all have to go through, anyone who's heard me talk about Alison Armstrong, you should definitely go check out the masculine stages of development. It's huge. The Amazing Development of Men is what it's called. And she talks about, as men, we have to go through this stage of knighthood, which is about adventure and fun and conquests and experiences before we're ready to settle down, commit, be more specific. And the problem most guys face is that we lose that sense of adventure, or we deprioritize adventure as we go into commitment and structure and foundation, which makes for men to be really dry and uninteresting and kind of boring.